Hello traders, Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com, May the 11th, 2025. In this edition of your weekend video newsletter, we'll discuss the indices which basically closed flat on Friday. After a big move on Thursday on UK tariff negotiations, overall flows were light, leaving us with 4 bullish indicators, 10 neutral, and 6 bearish to start the week. The S&P 500 traded in a pretty narrow range last week, closing below the 200-day moving average, with RSI flat to sideways, along with MACD and stochastics showing a fade in its recent momentum. Volume was fairly light, with the index gaining 18% last week after bullish developments with the UK on Thursday. In addition, positive developments in Bitcoin with the index moving above 100,000, currently on Sunday trading around 104,200. IBIT also gained more than 6% for the week, closing just below recent highs. In addition, the New York FANG components closed in a very narrow range right at its 100-period moving average, with the 10 component stocks closing mixed. Snowflake, Tesla, and Broadcom all closing more than 2% higher for the week. Momentum is slowing as we wait for results from the tariffs negotiation with China over the weekend. We also saw small caps managing a decent gain, with 6 of 9 sectors rising on bullish activity as VIX volatility and realized volatility all moved lower to end the week. Consideration is given to breadth, which did manage a positive move last week. We are flattening out and a bit extended at the moment, so depending on what happens with Sunday night futures into Monday, we'll reassess the markets early Monday morning, as we currently will have a cautious position to start Monday trading. Bonds remain in range. We did see the 10-year yield rising a bit Thursday and Friday, so we'll have to keep an eye on that, along with junk bonds itself closing in a tight range for the week, right at the 50-day moving average, with the 200-day just overhead. Overall, this is telling us to be neutral to start the week, along with the US dollar starting to grind a bit higher. In addition, we have gold trading in a narrow range, with Bollinger Bands contracting, telling us to wait for a direction to start the week. Finally, we had commodities like crude oil and gasoline in a range, showing a double bottom at present, with 50 and the 200-day declining overhead, with the Deutsche Bank Commodity Index Tracking Fund also showing us a higher low, but still below a flat 200-day moving average. All this together, bonds, currencies, and commodities, are telling us to be cautious to start on Monday trading. Let's see what the negotiations with China have brought to the markets, and then we can reassess to start the week. Overall sectors look pretty good, with financials, industrials, and technology pointing to 20-50-day crosses, bullish price action, as the consumer discretionary consumer staples ratio starts to turn more bullish. Looking for a follow-through and a crossover this week that'll tell us that institutions are definitely positioning more for a rally and not defensively like they were into the peak in February. The IBD 50 have quite a few candidates that look like they could follow through this week, so make sure you check these out. With Dutch Brothers, Dave, Duolingo, Hims and Hers, Palantir, many of these look like they could continue, with Hims and Hers breaking out last week. Some of the gold stocks also look good, like Kindros, Agnico Eagle, indicating these could move higher if gold and silver break out of their consolidation patterns this week. Dave breaking out on Thursday, following through on Friday. Very strong price action. Volume was above average. Duolingo also breaking above 500 for the first time with a nice ascending flag. Hims and Hers, very bullish action last week. We were watching for this consolidation, potentially for a breakout and a continuation in the weeks to come as the 20 and 50 day have crossed as of Wednesday last week. LPLA, which provides brokerage and investment advisory services, along with many of the financials last week like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs. Many of the big banks look like they could follow through this week, with JP Morgan grinding along a 9 EMA with a 21-day also crossing up through the 50-day. 50-day is starting to turn up and to the right, so this looks good for a retest of 52-week highs in the next several weeks. As financials and industrials catch a bid, like Caterpillar and Boeing, as ongoing tariff negotiations bolster bullish price action, looking for Boeing to break above 200, perhaps this week. Palantir also had a good week, did a lot of study on the company, partnering up with Elon Musk XAI and TWG Global to redefine financial services through enterprise AI. This is a big deal, folks, with Palantir recently scoring 83%, using a rule of 40, a metric that combines the company's revenue growth rate and profit margin. This score is off the charts, similar to what we saw with NVIDIA last year. That gave many tech stocks a boost, looking for follow-through, looking for more strength in financials, industrials, and tech this week, along with bullish action that we've seen in education stocks like LRN, Stride, Grand Canyon Education. There's many education stocks that are showing a bid. Check your favorites as these education stocks become market leaders. Look for these to follow through in the weeks to come. In addition to the IBD 50, there are quite a few stocks showing up on the relative strength scan over at IBD. I just made a list out of these, noticing some of the banks like Bank of New York Mellon. Looking for many of these stocks to follow through, like AEVA, Bank of New York Mellon, Chewy, a nice trend, Charles Schwab following through, Curtiss Wright, nice breakout, Corteva in the fertilizers business, Deutsche Bank, some of the smaller banks, EQT, GE Aerospace also breaking out to new 52-week highs. Insulet last week with earnings popping. Johnson Controls breaking out as more money's being funneled into infrastructure, construction-related names. Oddity Tech, that one continues a bullish trend that started last week. So with this in mind, we'll be focusing on technology, financials, industrials, communication stocks, and consumer discretionary, among others. As many stocks are showing tremendous strength going into the Friday close. Also keep in mind that most international countries are showing bullish price action with 20, 50-day crosses, prices above recent highs, showing potential for follow-through as these companies get in line to negotiate with the Trump administration. Okay, traders, that's going to do it for me. This is Cousin Vinny coming to you from theclosingprint.com on Sunday, the 11th of May, 2025. I'll send out a watch list later tonight around 12 midnight on the East Coast, around 9 o'clock on the West Coast. So be sure to check your inbox for that later tonight. And look forward to more positive outcomes with negotiations with countries in the short term. Have a great weekend, take care, and we'll see you in the morning. Ciao.